What is going on, guys? We've got another busy day. Pretty typical. Can't complain. If you're busy, that means you're moving somewhere, so that is a good thing. Rather be busy than have no work. So today's agenda is getting this guy in the barn and dropping the motor in. I do also have to pull the motor out of it. When I got this thing, it showed up just like this. The motor has been out of it for sure because there's no clutch and flywheel in there. I don't know why it's together like it is. It's kind of weird, but we're gonna have to pull this out, which should be really easy. Only a few bell housing bolts and it will come right out. And then I would like to drop the EJ20X into here, get it bolted up, get it partially assembled, maybe finish up what we need to on the bottom of it. So get the downpipe on, a cat back, get the radiator hoses hooked up, all that sort of thing. And then I might roll it out. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to see if I can leave it in there and get the Model S over to my tuner so he can get me a base mat for it. And I'm guessing we're probably going to start it early next week because I also have a 6-speed swap to package, which I will also include in the video or do a video on separately. But yeah, let's jump right into it. I've got a few things to clean up first. I got to put this welder away and make room for the car in here. And today is Friday. I don't have any special plans. I'm probably just gonna work. Gonna hang out with my girlfriend tonight. Yeah, pretty typical Friday. If you guys are watching this, I greatly appreciate it. If you could click the subscribe button, that helps me out a ton. We are slowly growing. I hope we continue to grow, and I want you guys along for the journey. So doing that would be greatly appreciated. So because of the hill going up to the barn, and I buy Subarus so they don't run, I have to either pull or push them into the barn. If it's a really nice vehicle, I will put a tow hook on the front, and then we have an eye bolt in the cement up there that I will either use a come along and pull it up there or a winch and pull it up there. But because I don't really care too much about this car, it's already got some hail damage. Fenders are cut. The bumpers are already not in the best shape. I'm just going to push this one. So I put a tire between this bumper and the front bumper of, in this case, one of my Outbacks. And I'm going to push it up in the barn. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. If you guys have a hill leading to where you need to work on your vehicle, and if you have a Subaru, it probably doesn't run. So you might need a vehicle to push. So I'm going to go grab that Outback, and we're going to push it up in there, get this motor out of here, get the other motor in. I do still have to put the rear main and the clutch and flywheel on it, and then we should be ready to drop it in. Normally I use my yard Forester that just sits around to push vehicles, but it's got a hole in one of the transmission lines and I don't really want to fix it right now, so I'm using one of the Outbacks. So I just pull up nice and close here, then I'll have to find my tire that I used to push it. I'm not sure where it is right now. I am ripping the shorts today. It's kind of warm out for Michigan at this time of year. It's like 60 degrees. I did find the tire. Once I start pushing this thing, I'm probably just going to throw it on time lapse or speed it up myself just because it's kind of boring and it takes a while because I got to get out, steer this one, push, steer, push, steer. So you guys don't really want to see that. So I will see you after the time lapse. I have pushed vehicles like this so many times now because, again, I buy Subarus, usually non-running, so I always have to do this. Hopefully when I get my own place, the barn is not located on top of a hill and it will be a lot easier. Hopefully that stops. That Outback is actually next after this silver car and then doing brakes on my blue STI. I have been battling that thing, cannot figure out the problem. So next is I have to pull the metal timing cover because it's an FB, unfortunately, swap out the cam gear and see if that fixes it, and then go from there. But we're not worried about that right now. We're worried about putting the motor in this thing. I've never had this one on the lift, so we will see what the underneath looks like. Should be totally solid and fine because it is from Texas. If it was from a rust state, boy oh boy, would we have some rust with these cuts that the previous owner did. But let's get this guy on the lift, see if we need to unbolt the motor mounts. I'm not sure if the motor mounts are bolted in or not. Take a peek underneath, see if we find anything interesting. Maybe we find some modifications, maybe not. Let's get her up on the lift. When I pushed it in the barn, I didn't get it very centered, so that's what I'm doing here. Trying to get this thing more centered. That was not a very good attempt. Let me try again. Whoopsie. Hopefully that was nothing important, but I'll look in a second. think that was my brother's stuff that he didn't put away, even though he's in Arizona right now. Oh, actually, one of those things was important, and it is good it did not hit anything when it fell over. All right, I think we're more centered now. That was a much better attempt than the first. Yeah, I knocked over our torch. That is not ideal. And a bunch of tools. I don't know why he left these tools out when he's going to be gone all weekend. Pretty sure this thing's on factory suspension and everything, so I don't think we're going to find anything underneath. It was very lightly modified, so I don't think there's going to be any sway bars or suspension pieces or anything like that underneath that's going to surprise us. It looks really clean, which is good, of course. Everything looks factory as I expected. I do not see anything aftermarket, which is fine. Totally fine. No rust. Also, as I expected, being a Texas car, looks like we got all the OEM under trays, so that's good. Like this guy's still on here. I don't see any transmission leaks, which is good. Not typical on these STI 6-speeds. Let's get this OEM under tray off. Unbolt the motor mounts. Let's see. We've got a few bell housing bolts down here, but after that, we're done. We just got to take this tray, unbolt the motor mounts and these two bell housing bolts, and we'll be able to pop this motor out. And if these heads are good, I have somebody interested. If not, I might get them refinished and then sell them, or keep them as spares, maybe to build a motor for this thing. We will see. What does that dude think he's doing, just wandering around the barn? Where's the cat? Where's the cat when we need her? The exhaust that came with this car was an NVIDIA exhaust that was chopped up, and I have an NVIDIA N1 back here that came off of a 13 STI that I'm going to see if it fits. It was off a sedan, so I think it might. Oopsie. Is there some water in here? I think it's gonna fit. A little bit of WD-40 and TV blaster or something makes life much easier getting these grommets back on. Wanna help me hold this up there a sec? Thank you. I think this fits. Ooh. This is the easiest motor I've ever pulled. Yeah.
One hand.
There we go. Definitely the easiest I've ever pulled. I'm stealing the motor mount and this little dust tray right here in case I want to use them on that motor. I can't remember if that has a dust tray, and I don't know if I want to switch motor mounts yet, but before I set it down, I'm going to steal them off of here. I don't think there's anything else I'm going to need off this motor. At least I hope not. There's 2 broken bell housing bolts on this. So somebody cross-threaded them or something. I've never broken a bell housing bolt. That one looks cross-threaded. That one just looks like it's really seized, so I'm not really sure, but all right. Definitely the easiest motor I've ever pulled. I'm going to set this down off to the side and then get the other one up on this cherry picker here so we can do the rear main and we can put the clutch and flywheel on. Then I think she's ready to drop in. Cool, cool, cool. Let's see if we can sneak through here. And these gloves seem like they've been ripping a lot lately. These are supposed to be heavy duty. What the heck? I had to throw the sleeveless on. It was getting a little bit warm, but this is the clutch that I'm putting in this. It is a action clutch. It is a 6-putt clutch that is kind of a weird situation. I bought one of the cars and I didn't know if the motor was good or not, so I re-put it back in, but it did need a clutch, and I put this in it, and I may or may not have done some launches in it. That will be undisclosed. It may be a little bit hot spotted. Am I concerned about that? Not at all. Is it a little bit rusty from sitting? Potentially. Am I concerned about that? I'm not concerned about that either. A few clutch slips later, and we got all that rust off of it, and it might be a little bit too aggressive. Who cares though? Completely fine. It's got a new throwout bearing on it. It's already greased. I already had this in a car, so I know it works. I'll either time lapse or skip past putting all this stuff on, so I'll see you after that. There you are. How's it going? Need some food? Oh, you got some. You're good. I'm now ready to put the EJ20X on the cherry picker. Had to message a few customers first, but before we dropped it in, while it was on the cherry picker, we had to put the rear main in, get the flywheel and clutch bolted on because you can't do that on the engine stand. Sorry if there's a little background noise. My dad is leaf blowing, but we've got our crank pulley torqued down. We've got our clutch and flywheel. Flywheel bolts are Loctited and torqued. Clutch pressure plate is torqued down. The disc is in there and centered. I've got this hose right here. That will be our cylinder 4 cooling mod. I'll have to find a T to splice into one of these lines right here. But we are ready to drop in. I've got this dust cover on here. I've got some studs on there. Throwout bearing does not go on here. It goes on there. Once you get the motor installed, you push the clutch fork to seat it into the clutch. I will show you guys how to do that. And another tip, especially when putting a different motor in, these pins right here, they are alignment dowels. And I have done it many times where sometimes they get left in the transmission, sometimes they get left in the motor. And when I put a different motor in, they're mismatching. And so I go to put it in. I don't know why it's not going in. Why is it not going in? And I'm hitting just dowel on dowel, which is not ideal. So this one's good to go because both dowels are in the motor and no dowels are in the transmission. I need to get the clutch fork pin installed and the throwout bearing installed on the transmission, jack the transmission up a little bit, and then we will be good to drop the motor in, get it seated in there. I'll kind of show you guys a few little necessary tips. Other than that, it's going to be time lapse or skip through. This person had the slave cylinder unbolted from the transmission, which is definitely unnecessary. So I'm going to bolt this in before I drop the motor in because that's just what makes sense. They also have the pitch stop mount completely unbolted, which I don't know why they would do that either, if I'm being totally honest. They definitely did some weird things on this car. She's ready to go in.
Gal, darn it. Got a little bit of leafage going on.
Hopefully they come off when we're tuning. Okay, we're back now. I had a customer come over, so I had to deal with that. And then I went in and ate dinner. Then I went to the store. But now we're ready to drop the motor in. I believe I was going to tell you guys how I do this throwout bearing here. So I just put a little bit of grease on the inside. Either you can put it on the inside of the throwout bearing, or you can put it right there. I'm actually gonna get a rag and clean that off before I put this on because it looks a little dirty. Do I have a rag within reach? Negative. Looks like we're getting out again. Okay. I got the throwout bearing installed. Now I was lubing up the clutch fork pin to put that in. Avery, what is he doing? She doesn't like you.
Meow. You put her in your videos, so
I do put her in my videos.
I'm making her in your video.
I already got her. Well, it looks like you're choking her.
It does. Your hand is around the neck.
That'll definitely go in the video, though. I got all the clutch fork and the clutch pin things situated, so we were ready to drop the motor in. I had to have someone hold the hood while I put the motor in because the cherry picker was going to hit it while I was trying to get the motor in the engine bay. Getting the motor in there was pretty simple, but I fought this one pretty hard connecting it to the transmission. I don't know exactly why. There she goes. I've not fought one this hard in a while. Once you get the motor bolted to the transmission, I usually only do 2 bolts. I do one up here and then one kind of diagonal on the other side at the bottom. I get it bolted together, then I drop it into the engine cradle. The next thing you should do is not start putting the motor together. It is seating the throwout bearing into the clutch, because if you don't do this and it for some reason doesn't work and you put everything together, then you're gonna have to take everything back apart and pull the motor back out. And that is what you don't want to do. So I'm gonna try and get this on camera. I think I need to recruit Jade to hold it for me to show you how to properly seat this in there. So I take this slave cylinder pin and I move it out of the way, and you can unhook this little spring if you want also. And basically we're going to push the clutch fork that way, which moves the throwout bearing this way into the clutch. So I can tell it's seated. Now the best way to do this, as long as your slave cylinder is properly bled, which this one wasn't disconnected, so it should be, is go push the clutch pedal, make sure the clutch feels normal. So I'm gonna do that while Jade holds that, and you should see the clutch fork move. Let me know if it's moving. Perfect. And the clutch feels normal, which means the clutch fork is engaged. Thank you. Which means we can now start putting everything else together after we put in the plug that goes on the side way down in there. I have also forgotten that. Don't do that. So I'm going to put that plug in, and then I'm going to throw you on time lapse. Just put everything together, put the downpipe on, things like that, and I will see you after the time lapse. I was looking at this cat back when I was putting it on, and it looks like this has been re-welded, so I kind of expected that it potentially might be too short, and it is. But with my 2019 STI, a spare mid-pipe came with it. I'm not exactly sure why, but we're going to see if this works. Hopefully it does. If not, then I'll have to figure something else out, but I believe that this will work. All right, let's see if this thing's longer. It is definitely longer, so that will solve our problem. Looks like it's slightly differently shaped as well, but that is good. Now we can keep this N1 cat back. I don't know what we'll do with this mid pipe, but evenly lined up there. They're the same shape until right here, and then yeah, we've got maybe a 2-inch difference, but this one should fit better. This one looks like it was going to hit the heat shield, so worked out perfect. Uh-oh, I need your help. Where did that nut go? You are all set. Thank you, Jaden. Awesome. Okay, new mid pipe is on. I'm gonna bolt. Actually, I'm not gonna bolt it down there yet because I have to bolt the down pipe on first, and then I'll see you on time lapse. After the time lapse, I guess. I started off here with installing the flex fuel kit that I had on my other car, so I got the fuel lines hooked up, and then we moved on to something else the next day. I'm having Jade clean out the 2019 STI right now. And I'm also going to swap tail lights so that I don't have to tint the tail lights on the 17 because I'd like the tinted look. So I'm just going to swap whole assemblies. They're the same part number and everything, so I think it should look good on here, and that way we'll have factory taillights on there as well. A while ago, when I thought I was going to keep my blue 2019 STI longer, I decided to do a little smoke out on the clear part of the taillight, but now that it's unmodified and I will be selling it, I decided to just swap whole taillight assemblies like I said, rather than having to order more tint and tint the taillights on the 2017. It was really straightforward. I have only swapped taillights on older model Subarus before, but this was almost identical, so it was really easy. If you guys are still watching, I greatly appreciate it. If you could hit that subscribe button, it helps me out so much. I think that looks much better. I even like the tinted ones better on this car, but this one's getting sold unmodified, so we might as well have untinted taillights. It is currently Saturday afternoon. I have all the bell housing bolts in, the downpipe is in, bolted down, and fuel lines, things like that are hooked up. I need to go pull an oil pressure gauge and sensor out of one of my other cars to put in here. Then once that is in, we can get the AC compressor, the alternator, and the power steering all bolted down. And then we got to plug a few things in on this side, route our AOS, put the top mount on, and we'll be about done until we get the tune. My girlfriend and I are off to a church event. This is where we're sitting with the cars. I got the oil pressure gauge ready to go in, but that's going to be it for this video. We have to take off, and I'll get this video up for you guys tomorrow, which will be Sunday. Hope you guys' projects are going well. I hope you're doing well in life, and I'll see you guys in the next video.